Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram. August 30th is a day of remembrance for the disappeared, many who are victims of war, violence, and persecution worldwide. Nowhere does it resonate more deeply than in Iraq, where fresh mass graves are still being unearthed. Decades of sectarian bloodshed and Daesh's short but brutal reign have left countless families still searching for answers and closure. But all too often, many are left wondering what happened to their loved ones. Ahlam al-Husseini has this story.
Decades of conflict have left Iraqis traumatized. While the violence has subsided, families are still searching for answers for loved ones who never returned home. For a country rich in archaeological treasures, digs often uncover mass graves, the brutal remnants of Daesh's reign of terror, nearly a decade ago. For many families, this is the only closure they receive.
I lose hope each time I look at the names of people and their sentences published by the Martyrs Foundation from time to time, and I don't find the name of my father. In reality, it is as if I am looking for something and I get really sad when I don't find it. It is as if I am waiting for the name of my father as proof that he is a victim, and this is a deep pain we suffer from. But hopefully, we will find the corpse, his name, the place where he was buried, so that we can at least go and visit him, stand by his grave.
More than 250 mass graves have been excavated since 2003. The most recent at Al-Khafsa is believed to hold the remains of Iraqi security forces and Yazidi victims. While some were found and given state funerals, for most, only a picture remains. Today, the Red Cross says Iraq has one of the highest numbers of missing persons in the world. In the last 3 decades, an estimated 1 million Iraqis have vanished. The vast majority have been men, which has left an economic burden on the women who now run their households. Many have also been trapped in legal limbo. Iraqi law can grant martyr status to the missing, but to attain that requires proof of death that many may never get. For Iraq, the challenge isn't only finding the missing, it's building a future where no one else vanishes into silence. Ahlam al-Husseini, Straight Talk.
For more, joining me now from Baghdad is Ikhtiyar Aslanov. He's the head of the International Committee of the Red Cross Delegation in Iraq. Mr. Aslanov, thanks for joining me. Now, Iraq is a very interesting geography, a country that's been at war on its territory for over 2 decades. Daesh swept through the country. Very, very challenging. What has been the biggest challenges that your team has faced?
During the conflict of the recent years, the biggest challenge that we faced was, of course, the safety and security and access to those people that were affected. Of course, the situation has since very much improved, and today's Iraq is a completely different Iraq, if I can say this way. But apart from the security and access, and which is the main part of our main condition for our work is, of course, being able to deliver those humanitarian services that previously I talked about, delivering the basic services, making access available for the people who are affected, tending to their what we call other needs if they have lost contacts. So this, and also, of course, important part is magnitude. As you rightly mentioned, during past conflicts, nearly all the population of Iraq today counts more than 40 million, 45 million people. So one can imagine that when all the public services disturbed and all the services have been cut, responding to the needs is, of that magnitude always brings challenges.
What's your best estimate about the exact number of disappeared people in Iraq?
That question is very difficult to answer precisely because there is no unified registry in Iraq, and Iraq having faced 4 decades of international armed conflicts, but also internal conflicts. No one today has a precise figure concerning the number of missing persons in Iraq. But what I can say, without probably mistake, is that every family in Iraq has a missing person related to the conflicts of past or most recent ones.
That is such a tragedy. Where are these disappeared people in your best idea or your opinion? I mean, what percentage do you believe of these people are still alive? And if they are alive, are they in slavery? Are they being held hostage? I mean, I think it's a very, very interesting topic right now, and especially speaking to you because you have firsthand knowledge and you have a lot of effort in trying to recover these people.
First of all, I wanted to note that looking for persons who have disappeared or went missing is a rather complicated and lengthy process. Sometimes takes years, if not decades. And here we are not the only one who responds, who tries to locate or find information about those missing persons. So, of course, we do work first and most importantly with those families and relatives of those missing persons. We also very closely coordinate and cooperate with Iraqi authorities. These are Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Health, and others involved. And the locations of those missing persons can be really difficult to say exactly one or other. During the conflict, of course, people displaced. Unfortunately, also because of the calamities of the war, people get killed in very unknown circumstances. You have also people arrested and their families are not informed. You have people also migrating, leaving the country in the course of which they lose contact with their families. So the reasons can be really different, variety of reasons. And there, of course, as I mentioned, trying to understand the circumstances, how these people went missing, is the first step that we can say that one needs to understand.
How long have you been at the head of the Iraq delegation?
I have arrived in Baghdad March in 2024.
Okay, so you've been there
more than a year.
About almost a year and a half. Can you share the most extraordinary story of yours regarding a discovery or being able to bring back one of these disappeared people? I'm sure you have many interesting ones, but can you just share one with our viewers?
There are indeed quite a few stories when one hears. That's what generates the hope, if I can say, when we do this kind of work. One of the recent ones I can remember where one family in Iraq was looking for a loved one for more than 7 years. And we have found that person in a place of detention in Iraq. And the contact was established. So, of course, in one way, one can say that this was a success and pleasant story because person is alive, even if that person is in detention. After 7 years of separation and the family, not that families lose hope, but as you can understand, the longer time it takes to identify and find where the people are, the more pressure and more stress it puts on the families. And so this story was very much emotional for the family and I'm sure for my colleagues as well.
Mm-hmm. How important is hope for the family, but also in the event when you find a disappeared person and they're deceased, how important is closure for the family as well?
Certainly. I mean, missing is something that there is, if I can put this way, there is a hole in a social fabric of the family in their daily life. Family is always, of course, unless there is a confirmed situation where a family sees their loved one is deceased or killed, not that it is closure, but it is kind of, how to say, pre-identified or clear situation. When the person goes missing, the hope is always high. The hope is always for this person to be alive. The hope is always to one day find out about this person and get you reunited and establish contact. That hope, I can say that continues throughout the life of the families and relatives of the person missing, and also person herself or himself, if that person is alive when we identify or when we find such kind of stations where we establish or reestablish contact. We can see the huge amount of emotions, of course, accompanied with a relief, but that is very emotional moments when we witness such kind of reunifications, as we say.
What's the psychological toll like on these families, but also what's the psychological toll like on your delegation and your team members who are out in the field trying to find these people?
The psychological pressure is on, I would say, first and utmost on family members. They are going through immense psychological pressure, I would say, of not knowing what happened to their loved ones. And of course, for the team, as human beings, even though it's part of our job, we do also feel for those families. Regardless the reasons of the persons going missing. And that's one of the also asks that we are always putting forward to the authorities, not to discriminate those missing persons for the reasons that they go missing. We understand that there are different circumstances, different situations, but in the end of the day, whoever has a missing persons, they are the one carrying this burden, carrying this pain. And there we have been very closely working with Iraqi authorities so that as much as possible, as I said, the process is rather complicated so that every single person can be looked for. I can give you one example, for example, that Iraq-Kuwait war that happened in the 90s. Today, every time when we identify a person, it is a big process, big emotional process, emotional feelings for the family, even to receive remains of those missing persons.
I want to ask you about mass graves as well. I mean, there's been a lot of discovery of mass graves in many of these war zones, whether it's Libya, Syria, or Iraq, and obviously many discoveries in Iraq. When one is discovered, what type of steps do you take to be able to identify bodies, get the news to family members, and what type of process do you have?
We very closely work with the Iraqi authorities, as I mentioned, and one of the institutions that very closely and has a direct responsibility on when it comes to the mass graves. This is the Mass Graves Department of the Martyrs Foundation in Iraq. So we do work very closely with this institution. As I mentioned, any information related to the circumstances of the missing person is very important, and they are the important piece of information for identification. Exhuming human bodies, going to these mass graves is also entails very specific steps, which my colleagues from the forensic departments, or what we call medical legal department, is very closely working with Iraqi counterparts, sharing experiences and knowledge, how to make sure that bodies that are found in such kind of mass graves are undisturbed, because the items or the way or the clothing, piece of clothing, everything brings a step closer to finding information about these missing persons and identifying those persons. So, as you rightly mentioned, it is a rather complex and a very technical process that my colleagues are together with Iraqi authorities, as I said, sharing experience and making sure that information is not lost during the exhumations, during the excavations of these mass graves.
That's all the time we have. Ikhtiyar Aslanov, I wish you the best of luck in your efforts to help discover disappeared people in Iraq. Iraq's struggle to uncover the fate of its disappeared remains one of the country's deepest humanitarian challenges. At the same time, Baghdad's also grappling with a region rocked by several conflicts and fears of a wider war. With uncertainty gripping Iraq and its neighbors, can Baghdad and Ankara work together to navigate changing power balances across the region? Joining me now from Boston, Massachusetts is Hamzeh Hadad. He's a fellow at the Center for New American Security. And from Ankara, Betul Akkas. She's an assistant professor at Ankara University. My dynamic duo, thanks for joining me. Now, there's been a big paradigm shift in the region very recently. Obviously, the conflict between Israel and Iran. Now, obviously, Iraq being in the region, very, very affected. How do you see the implications and ramifications of what happened over the past couple months between Israel and Iran impacting Iraq? Hamzeh, let's start with you.
Thank you, Yusuf. Well, Iraq's largest border is with its neighbor, Iran. And having been embroiled in conflict for the last 4 decades, there was a lot of fear that it would be entangled in the recent regional conflict between Israel and Iran. And for the most part, Iraq has managed to stay out of Israel's crosshairs. We've seen Lebanon be targeted, Yemen targeted, and Iran itself. Many people thought it would be only a matter of time. But despite the presence of paramilitary forces in Iraq that are aligned with the Iranian government and the close ties between Baghdad and Tehran, the Iraqi government has been able to keep itself out of it.
Mm-hmm. Betul, do you agree? Has Iraq been able to shield itself from the fallout between Israel and Iran?
Yes, definitely. I agree with Hamzeh in respect with the fact that Iranian forces aligned with the Iran, actually, the forces in Iraq, they were trying to sort of hedging between their domestic role and their regional role, including their relationship with Iran and their role as a political force who is completely against Israeli policies in Gaza, in the extended Middle East. But the problem here is, as we are approaching a new election process in Iraq in November, and as we are expecting a new waves of tension between Iran and Israel, how these forces in Iraq will be engaging with their internal roles and regional roles. The problem mostly related to their alliance with the extended Middle East powers, as we have seen in Yemen, as we have seen in Syria. The regional tension has an approach that actually bringing more conflicted actors to their domestic politics. So we don't know how it will be unfolded by time, but we are expecting more conflict, including Iraqi role in the current regional tension.
Mm-hmm. Hamzeh, we look to the east of Iraq. Let's look to the west with what's happened in Syria over the past year. How has that impacted Baghdad, and how is the relationship right now between Baghdad and the administration in Damascus?
It's been a difficult one. It's not like Iraq has had great relations with the previous regime in Syria. A lot of a bloody history between the two. But there's also been caution from Baghdad, from the new Syrian administration. There's been a lot of public wariness about moving forward. But internally, I think most of the Iraq's political leaders understand that they need to have good relations with all neighboring states. That includes Syria. And there's some strategic thinking behind it where Syria is just coming out of a long civil war. They're still rebuilding. They're still forming their new government. If there's ever been a time to build bilateral relations where you have the upper hand, now is the time. So it hasn't been as public as other countries have been in welcoming Syria, but we have still seen ties being built.
Mm-hmm. Betul, when we look to the north, there's Turkey. Obviously, Turkey and its arch nemesis, the PKK terror group, there's been advancement there to lay down its weapons. How have those developments impact Iraq?
Even without thinking Syrian role in this triangle of security, issues between Turkey, Iraq, and Syria. We know that the Kurdish component of the policymaking is one of the critical one for Ankara. And since we have domestic calculations both inside the Turkey and Iraq, which are encouraging the current rapprochement between these two countries, especially considering the north of Syria, including the considerations on the development road project, other domestic security issues, the sociological tie between two sides of the borders. We are expecting a cautious but kind of steps that actually build up more on a constructive way of policymaking when it comes to Kurdish component of the politics. What we are trying to more trying to more answers on it, how the current kind of unknown future of the Kurdish component in Syria will affect on these dynamics between Iraqi side and Turkish side. We are expecting a better negotiation process, including these three dimensions of Kurdish politics. But the priority of Turkey, as we understand from the policymakers' narrative, is actually, first of all, the security of Turkish border, then bringing more cooperation between the parties to kind of reconstruct the area itself, including infrastructure, economic ties, and the understanding of it is not to have any spillover effect of any other regional problems, including the Syria, on this ongoing negotiation process.
Mm-hmm. I think when we just bounce around the geography surrounding Iraq, we could see how fluid the situation is in all its neighbors. But I really want to get to the gist of today's segment. What I really want to ask you guys is Iranian influence right now inside Iraq, especially after post the Israel-Iran conflict. How is it right now? Has Iran been weakened inside Iraq, or is it still the major player right now, Hamzeh?
Iran's still a major player in Iraqi politics, along the United States. Despite the weakening of Iran regionally, it still has strong ties with Iraq. It still has a lot of influence inside Iraq. But at the same time, they also understand they can't lose Iraq. It is one of its only avenues to the global market. They know they can't push it to the brink like they did with Lebanon. They lost all ties with Syria. Yemen's also non-existent. So despite having influence in Iraq, they also have to be cautious and not losing it. So it is a balancing act, and it's not as black and white as some may make it out to be.
Mm-hmm. So Betul, during the Israel-Iran war, we saw a lot of IRGC targeted assassinations by Israel. First of all, did this decrease Iran's capacity to project power in Iraq? And also, is this an opportunity right now for Turkey? Because obviously Iraq of great interest to Turkish foreign policy, but Iran has always been kind of the major player over there in the region.
Yes, definitely. And for Turkish-Iraqi relations, the component of the politics that are actually more supported by the Iranian government regime in Iraq, it has been an issue for Turkish policymakers when it comes to their calculations for Iraqi politics, but not only for them, for other Middle East powers as well. As we have seen, Arab Gulf monarchies, they are trying to re-engage with their policymaking in Iraq. They are actually recalculating the role of the policy impact by Iran. But especially for Turkey, because the security issue of Turkish politics in Iraq is not limited to north of Iraq, of course. They do have good relationship with the Kurdish governance, but they also need a full communication with the Baghdad government. And somehow this puts Turkey in a position that actually kind of re-bridging between the other Middle East actors and the actors in Iraq. So the role of Turkey or the Turkish negotiations in Iraq includes multi-parties and multi-dimensions of Iraqi politics.
Hamzeh, you mentioned the Americans. How much of an appetite do they have to continue investing finances and assets into Iraq to keep their influence there under Trump?
Well, they have the influence if they want it. The issue that we see in Washington across multiple administrations is Iraq fatigue. So there is a lack of an appetite to maybe be there militarily, and we're starting to see that with the planned withdrawal of U.S. forces from military bases by the end of this year. They're supposed to be withdrawn from all of Iraq by the end of 2026, as my colleague mentioned. So how much of a role the United States wants to play in Iraqi politics depends on them, because we all know that they have the power and the influence to be a critical player. But if they want to take a step back and allow, a NATO member ally like Turkey to play a bigger role, that could also take place.
Okay. Hamzeh, Betul, thanks for joining me. Thanks for helping me unpack this issue. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Yusuf Aram. If you got any comments, please share them with us on X at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find more exclusive content. Until next time, take care and goodbye.